Hello, folks. Today I'm gonna talk about SXA and all good Sitecore tricks. People like me that are working with Sitecore since, I don't know, last 10 years, we used to do a lot of the Sitecore customizations that always serving us. Lately, when I was doing my first few SXA's project, I was really wondering if those things still working. So this is going to be my presentation, SXA and all good Sitecore tricks. So maybe first, I'm going to talk a little bit about myself. So I'm a solution architect, MVP for the last 2 years. You can active member of Montreal Sitecore user group, and as well, a few times I had privilege to present as well in Poland Sitecore user group. You can find me easily on Twitter as Urban Sitecore. You can see my blog, urbansitecore.blog, and on Slack, this same name. So I'm really easy to be found. So what I'm gonna talk today about a few topics. First of them is about manipulating Sitecore links. So in order to do that, we have to create a link manager, link resolver, and buckets. I'm gonna talk about SXA caching, which is slightly different than what we used to do, and as well how the all good tricks to make sure that we didn't forget any component to be cached. And as well, if there's a need, we can set up our site in order to require login. So I'm gonna talk all about those topics with the next few minutes. So let's start about the Sitecore links and how those links are created, how Sitecore is resolving the links. So let's start from the out of the box what we have and what it's needed to create and configure properly the Sitecore links. So it takes two things. First one, site definition. So every site definition have few parameters. One of them is the root path and the start item. What you see on the picture, for example, hello home. So actually, all the children of the under the hello home, that's mean the combination of root path and start item. All the links going to be relative to that item. So let's say in here the hello home website, we have test page. So the relative URL of test underscore page item going to be my website / test page, right? Another part to create the URL to have the control on this is the link manager configuration. So if you're gonna look into your solution for the link manager out of the box, you have this piece of code that you can easily see in the shell config of your website with few parameters like add ISP extension, always includes server URL, language embedding, language location, lowercase URLs, shorten URLs, use display name, icon names. So to start the right basis, I'm gonna go through each of them. Probably you guys know already how they works, but let me go through them anyway. So the ISP extension parameter is saying whatever to include the ISP extension to URL. So in the case that we saw previously, in here the test page underscore 02, the URL of that page would be test underscore page underscore 02.ispx. Maybe not used commonly lately, but still the option is there, probably as a legacy configuration. The next one always includes server URLs. So instead of having the relative links, we can ask Sitecore to create the links with the full path. The next one is language embedding. So we may want or not, especially if you're working on the multi-language websites, to have a prefix in the URL when we see the language. So EN as the English invariant. We can have as the ISO encoding. So, for example, for French Canada, you're gonna see FR-CA, English Canadian EN-CA, etc., etc. The next one is the language location. It's whatever to specify the language as the first step in the URL path. So, so language embedding was one part, but we can say as well, we're never going to have the language embedding as the prefix in the URL, but we're going to have the parameter, which is sc_language, and then we define language. Something probably that is more used for when you're editing your website in the experience editor, for example. The next parameter is the lowercase URLs. This is one of the probably SEO, the best practices, to have all the URLs to have them lowercase. So we can have content editors use the different names if they need, but the links generated automatically by Sitecore are always going to be lowercase. The next one is the display name, and this is really important in the implementation with multi-language. Since I'm from Canada, country that have 2 official languages, so I would say all my Sitecore implementation that I did since 2012, they are multilingual. So the good case to use the display name to create URL instead of item name is that, for example, we want to have a page about us in English, but in the French Canadian version is going to be, or French from France, we're going to have a French word, apropos de nous, probably, right? And the last parameter I would like to talk about it is uncode names. Uncode names is the when we don't have any custom validation, when we're naming the items that are going to be pages, sometimes we can have some characters that are not allowed as the URL. So spaces, for example. So if there's a place in Sitecore when those uncode names replacement are set. So instead, in here you can see the end will be replaced by -a, etc., etc. So you may or may not want to use that. So the link manager by default is showing you that part. So actually, what we have out of the box with Sitecore is covering most of the cases, right? So the URL of the page, it corresponds to its position in the Sitecore tree under home of your website, right? So you remember the start item and the context item path, right? So why we need to change that? This is so good. This is so simple. Never change from the beginning. I think this default behavior at Sitecore covers 80% of the cases. So the first thing is usually it comes from the business, SEO. There's always new cases. The best practice of SEO changing over the time, so would be insane to change the default link reservoir. So we have to adapt. So usually what SEO best practices says, they have the URL, keep it shorter and simple. Shorter is always better than longer. So for example, we don't want to have URLs with more 3 levels. But logically, when you do the sitemap of your website, logically sometimes it makes sense. So you want to hide the folder structure, right? So for example, I can have a page, a parent, what we do. Under what we do, we can have different children, like for example, services, sectors, and all those sectors, they can have their own detailed pages. So all of a sudden, we have more than 3 levels URLs, and we don't always want to do that. So we can put in place a custom business logic how to generate those URLs. As well, the keywords in the URL, still a good thing. So it happens to me in previous project to have the different URLs for the same page, because let me show actually the use case. For example, in here we have a bathtub, which is a corner bathtub. We have in here a bathtub which is drop-in bathtub, and in here I have a corner bathtub, but it's drop-in as well. So one of the requirements that I have in the past, I wanted those keywords when I see which kind of the bath is you have in URL. As well, we always want to avoid to have dynamic parameters in our in URLs and buckets as well. This is a huge use case. Sometimes, especially with the products, when we have a lot of the items under the same folder, so we're using the item buckets. The best practice is to never have an item with more than 100 children. It's this is related to the performance. And the last case that actually comes to my mind is it's not always to show the internal structure. My previous project was we had lawyers that has been located in different offices, but for specific cases, they were covering more than one city. We didn't want them client to see if they're actually from Toronto, for example, if they're doing business as well in the New York. So you cannot put the item into two places, right? So this is another way of doing. I'm going to show you what is the best way of doing the custom Sitecore links in SXA. The good thing about it, in SXA, you can create your custom link provider per site. So you can go to your SXA site manager. You have a field link provider name. When you can put the name of your custom link provider. As well, thanks to that, each website for exactly the same items can have a different URLs. So you have like a full flexibility out of the box with SXA. So let's go and see a real case scenario how we can do that. So the first part is to register your link manager. As you can see in that patch config file, I added pipeline-based link resolver among them. So the name that you have in here, add name pipeline-based link resolver, is exactly what you have to enter into that SXA field. Link provider name, that must be the same. Then the way I implemented my link resolver, since I may have a different business rules for different pages, I decided to use the pipelines, right? What is pipeline? Pipeline is a series of steps to implement an operation. In other words, like a pipeline consists of a chain of operation where the output of each operation is the input for the next one. So in here, as you see, I have the override item URL pipeline, in which I added the two processors. First one is the product URL override, and I have a different one for the events. So in here you can see a piece of that code. This is the I use for the demo for that website. I use the Helix base, thanks to Neil Shack. So you can see that when I'm calling my URL resolver, I'm inheriting from Sitecore link resolver, and I'm overriding the get item URL method. From here, I'm calling the override item URL pipeline. So in that pipeline, I showed you before, I have two processors. So this one, for me, it's really easy. I have the get item URL method, in which I'm looking for ancestor that it's not my page anymore. It's not a bucket. You can see in here the website that probably everybody knows, which is the Sitecore Habitat at Home. So under the computers, in my case, imagine we have more than 100 computers. So I created a bucket where I put the when I created the pages. So for example, in here you're gonna see this VDD website. So the URL I would like to have actually from that website is this one that I created, like a small tool, so to help the content editors to see what's gonna be the generated URL. So as you can see, I have a parent computer / this page in the bucket. So implementation is really easy. For that processor, for that URL, I'm going to through the all ancestors until I'm gonna find a page with a layout, or I can have a partial template, which is, for example, the bucket parent. You can put your own logic. The URL for me, it's gonna be exactly what you see in here, my page name and the parent in here. So let's go to my implementation. You can ask myself why you're using the display name, because I'm the multi-language solution. So having the link resolver is just like a first part of your work, actually, because now is just how you links looks on your website created by Sitecore. So if you see that the page, actually I referenced my page as a link, Sitecore automatically generated that link that you can see on the left corner. This is my custom URL. Now the next step is to help Sitecore to resolve that thing. So once we have the links are generated the way we want to, now we have to help Sitecore to understand those links. So usually we adding a processor in HTTP begin pipeline. So we have to implement our link resolver. So so how it works in HTTP request begin, we have to add our request item resolver. So what I did in our cases, I added actually two different pipelines, because probably those guys who already did the link resolver in the past with ASP pages, they saw that MVC pipeline is setting back the item context to something else. So we need the check item resolved process to tell to MVC, actually my item has been resolved. Don't do it once again. So I was wondering before, with my first SXA implementation, if SXA is doing something similar that I have as well. Is they not setting the Sitecore context items once again? So good news, they don't. So really quickly, this is my custom link resolver. In here, so I'm looking for with the search. It's really easy. So in the HTTP request processor, I have link item resolver that inherits from HTTP request processor. In here, in my case, I'm looking if my item, the process, it's a star. I will explain in a minute why. If this is the case, I know exactly that I'm looking for my custom URL page. So I'm using Sitecore search to find that page in the parent when I have that star, and then I'm putting this flag custom item resolved. So later. That later in the MVC pipeline, I'm not gonna try to resolve once again. If you're asking yourself why I use the star, let me just show you my implementation. So long story short, in here, since I'm in the multi-language solution, it was really hard to check if my case the HTTP request comes for the custom URL, because in the multi-language solution, we're using display name usually for the URL. So imagine all the combination that we have for the same path in different languages. So long story short, in here, Sitecore is doing a half of job for me. So the URL to the computers is making itself. Then VDD, in here the VDD, that part, this item doesn't exist under the computer node. So Sitecore automatically resolves this to the star item. And this is it in my solution in here. I know that if my item, context item, has been resolved to the star, I know I have to put my custom logic. So I'm flagging this. I'm changing the context item for that one from search. I'm putting that flag, and that's it. Everything works. So let me show you the just to prove you that exists. So VDD computers. Let me click on that link. Sorry, I'm in the experience editor mode. Hello, VDD. So the next topic I would like to talk is about caching. This one, the thing in here I'm gonna talk about it is it's more about it's gonna be more about the demo. So to enable caching for your site in SXA, you must select an option in your website. Let's open the SXA Site Manager, and I'm gonna open my my site. And under the flags section, cache HTML. So this is just to enable the caching. Then we have 5 ways to set up the caching in SXA. So first thing first, we can set caching options on the globally for specific rendering. So let me go to the Sitecore layouts, renderings, feature, experience, accelerator. I can pick any of the I can take a promo. So I can set up the caching on that level. Oops. I'm not gonna. So I can put this component as cacheable with all those variation. As well, I can after that override this caching options as well on the site level. So this is like a general rule, but I can go under my website, presentation node, cache settings. So I can create a lot of caching settings with different values, where I can choose the renderings and change the option that you saw before. Next level that overrides the caching options. I can do it as well on the placeholder settings. So I am already in the in experience mode. Let's go to a container. From here, I can use the opening the placeholder settings. Let's say I have one. I want to edit, and in here you see the caching options. And then so I can have like a specific caching options just for all the components in that placeholder. And the last level of caching, I can change it for the component itself. So let me go to that specific promo component. From there, edit components properties, and there you go. We see all the same caching options. So which is really neat. It's really easy to define the caching on every level. SXA already works on the here. So I showed you the 5 ways how we can set up caching at SXA, but now what about those old good Sitecore tricks? So for people that remember admin page, we have rendering statistics page when you can see all the statistics about renderings. So for example, let's imagine this is your rendering, your custom rendering that you created. On that line that you see, this rendering has been requested 3 times, but never from cache. That means when in your caching options you forget about it. So this statistic page is still working for SXA. This is a good thing to, once you think you set up everything like it should be, to go back and make sure that all the components are cached. Now about required login. In my recent project, I have a requirement that for a reason that I don't know why they couldn't do the. They wanted to protect CM website from public access. So there probably is a lot of the way of doing that with Azure or on the infrastructure level. But in our case, I needed to set up this quickly with just configuration the day that we discovered that we have our bridge. So I was thinking about the old Sitecore required login option that we have in the on the site definition level, when you can say required login to true. But it's a little bit different with Sitecore 9 when you have as well identity server. So let me tell you what we have to do. So think first the URL login endpoint changed its format. In that you can find all those breaking changes in the URL that you see in the Sitecore documentation, understanding Sitecore authentication behavior changes. And if you're going back to your SXA site manager, you have to put as the properties for your site 2 things. First of them is the login page. As you can see, the path is exactly what I put on the right. So /identity/login, your SXA site name, site identity server. And the second thing is just to put the required login properties to true. Almost there. So for my website, I added those 2 additional parameters, but it's not enough. So first thing first, you have to tell your Sitecore instance on the CM or CD that you have a website that's going to use identity provider. So as you can see, I added my identity provider per site mapping, and I put my site name. It must be the site name that you just saw it in the in SXA Manager. The next step on identity server, you have to modify Sitecore identity server host XML file. When you have make sure that your website URL is listed in here. I added every URL per config, but you can keep it only one and use the pipelines to list them in only one. So actually, my recommendation would be to have, if you have more than one SXA website, all the URLs related to the same website listed in one mapping entry, separated by pipelines and the other websites in here. So thank you everybody for your time. I hope you enjoyed my session, and you're gonna know what to use, the old Sitecore tricks that we're doing over the time for all those years, and still working with SXA.